This is Marshall Jones at Winthrop University, and I want to talk to you about using graphics and images on websites. First thing we need to do is probably do some definitions. Here are some of the image types that I want to talk to you about. There are certainly more image types than this, but these are the ones that you may be the most familiar with, or at least three of them. The first is the JPEG. JPEG is the image format that you're going to see in most digital cameras. It has 16.7 million colors possible in an image, and that image file is compressed. So what that means is that if you look at the shirt that you're wearing at the moment, if it's a blue shirt, chances are there are different shades of blues in that shirt, and if we took a picture of you wearing that shirt, we would see shadows, and we would see places where the blue looks different based on the light that's hitting the shirt. What a JPEG image does is that it averages out those colors so that we can get a file size that is manageable. So a compressed image is going to be significantly smaller than an uncompressed image. Now, you may not have heard of a RAW file before, but a RAW file is an uncompressed image. Professional photographers like to shoot in a RAW format. RAW format is interesting. It is completely uncompressed. So an image that might be 8 megabytes as a JPEG, as a RAW file, it could be as large as 80 megabytes. But the advantage from a photography standpoint is that you're able to edit at the pixel level. So you're able to see the real, actual, unaveraged colors. Other interesting thing about a RAW file is that you cannot save a RAW file. You can export a RAW file, but any changes you make to that RAW file by default cannot be saved. So it's a nice image type to edit. But let's get back to ones you may have also heard of. There is some debate as whether or not this is pronounced GIF or GIF. I pronounce it GIF. GIF is a peanut butter. Sorry. GIF or GIF files typically have 256 colors. And if you put that image, a photograph, as saved as a GIF file, and you put it on a website, it doesn't look bad. 256 colors turns out to be plenty for most people to be able to see an image. One advantage that a GIF file has is that it can be transparent and it can be animated. You've seen this with animated GIFs or GIFs that show up in lots of different places. There's a format that is called PNG. It stands for Portable Network Graphic, and it was created as what was called a lossless update to the GIF file. So you lose a lot of the color and the detail when you move to 256 colors. PNG was designed to provide many of the same benefits of a GIF file, like animation and transparency, but in a higher graphic format. It was never patented, so it shows up in places, and if you're saving images, you may see that it is saved as a PNG on a website. I tell you this mostly so that you'll know that it's out there. Now, this example here will show you what is one of the biggest differences between a GIF and a JPEG. The image on the right is a JPEG, and I know this because it's got the square box around it. The image on the left, where the dogs appear to be floating on the screen, that's going to be a GIF file or a GIF file, because you can tell that because we don't see that white frame. That white frame is made invisible in the GIF file that cannot be made invisible on a JPEG. So if you see images that appear to float on screens, they're very likely going to be GIF files. It's possible in software as basic as PowerPoint to create to make a JPEG a GIF simply by setting a transparent color. Typically, the white background would be the transparent color. It's analogous to using a green screen where we're going to replace one particular color, except we're just going to make that color transparent. And while we're here, let's talk a little bit about what kind of image you should save from the internet if you're going to save one. You're all familiar with doing a Google image search. When you do a Google image search, what you get is you get this list of thumbnails of images. Never save the thumbnail image because it's not the full-size picture. That thumbnail looks pretty good when it's in a small format as it is on the left. However, if you stretch it out, you can see that it begins to that the resolution is not very good because we get what we like to call noise around this. That image doesn't have enough pixels inside of it to be stretched out like that. So whenever you're doing a Google image search, it's always best to go to the actual page and save the image from the page so that you're getting a full-size image. A full-size image is going to let you have more control over what you do with it. It is always better to take a large image and reduce it in size than to take a small image and to try and increase it in size, because we end up getting noise from that smaller image. So when I talk about the size of an image, what I'm talking about is the resolution of the image. Images are measured in pixels and in resolution. So you get a number that is something like AAA by BBB. So in this example, you can see that this image is 2700 pixels. That's going to be on our horizontal scale, and 1820 pixels, that's going to be on our vertical scale. This picture is 400 on the horizontal and 600 on the vertical. I've changed my window to a folder of pictures on my computer because I want to show you how you can find the resolution of an image that appears on your computer. I'm in Windows. This works very similarly on a Mac, but if I put my cursor on an image, it's going to tell me that it is 2.66 megabytes and it is 3,504 pixels by 2,336 pixels. You can also get this information by right-clicking on the image and going to the properties. And you would get the same information. It's going to give you the size of the image here, and in the details for the image, you'll be able to see the actual resolution of the image. But you always want to go with the larger image because you can take the larger image. Is always going to look cleaner even when it's resized. A couple of other points I want to make here before we go, and that is that when you cite your image, and cite your images you should, your images did not come from Google. Okay, you're using Google to search for the images, but the images themselves have an actual address. So this image comes from this address. And if you're going to use images from other websites, then you need to keep a record of that. What I advise you to do is on your website is to create a page that's just called image sources, and as you use an image, copy the link that it came from and paste it on that page. You don't need to say that the picture of the Eiffel Tower came from history.com and the picture of the dog came from dogs.com. I'm not asking you to cite every image in the context in which it's used. I think that just ends up getting a little visually difficult to manage for the learner. But at least the people whose images you're using will be able to know that it was used on a website, and they'll be able to see that link there. This is Marshall Jones at Winthrop University, and we've been talking about graphics and images on websites.